Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of AEW Dynamite for June 22nd, 2022. This is the final episode before Forbidden Door on Sunday, the big cross-promotional pay-per-view with New Japan. A lot of build is going into this week's episode. A lot of changes and a lot of announcements happening tonight in regards to the show, which I'm kind of surprised took this long to get those announcements, but we'll talk about that as we get to it. Lots to discuss here, so let's begin. Bryan Danielson opens the show, and he's got some things to say about his health status, but first he talks about how exciting this week must be, if you're an AEW fan or just a wrestling fan in general, how excited he's been for Forbidden Door and for Blood and Guts, and how just very different those two situations are going to be, how excited he was to wrestle Zack Sabre Jr. at Forbidden Door and to fight Chris Jericho and his flaccid group of cocksmen, as he said it in Blood and Guts. But unfortunately, he is not medically cleared for either of those events, he announces, but he does say in terms of his overall health, he is fine and he will get back into the ring sooner than later. He talks about how Eddie Kingston once referred to him as a judgmental prick, and he actually agrees with that sentiment. He's very much, he has very high standards for his wrestles and everything, and so he explains that his replacement for Forbidden Door and for Blood and Guts will be able to kind of do both things. He'll be able to wrestle the wrestles and do the graps with Zack Sabre Jr., and will be able to take the fight to the Jericho Appreciation Society at Blood and Guts. And then after he's done saying his big spiel and says that we will be astounded by his pick, suddenly we see Zack Sabre Jr. out on the stage, has a bit of a kind of a just there and poses for a minute as Danielson looks at him. So that's basically the big story there, is Danielson is out and somebody is in. We're not going to know who it is until Sunday. I like Danielson's line here where he says, if you didn't notice, I came out of the bad guy tunnel. I'm not going to tell you what happens until Sunday. So yeah, who's it going to be? A lot of people are betting it's going to be Cesaro, Claudio Castagnoli. A lot of people are also thinking maybe Johnny Gargano could be the mystery person here. Of those two, I would definitely lean more towards Cesaro, whether it's just kind of a stopgap thing in place of Danielson or they actually want to sign him. It sounds like it's going to be somebody new. Danielson's verbiage in this made it sound like it is a debut. We've not seen him in AEW yet, so that's why I'm leaning toward one of those guys. But it could be somebody wildly different who's neither of those two. Who do you think it's going to be? Let me know in the comment section. We hear from Jon Moxley backstage. He's got some words to the Jericho Appreciation Society and talks about all the bad things they've done to he and his friends over the last couple of months. And he says, hey, in Vegas, we learned that they could fight, but we're going to find out if they can survive Blood and Guts next week. He also focuses attention on Tanahashi and says that on Sunday, he will accomplish what he's been working toward for the last 3 years. On we go to our first match of the evening, six-man action as Orange Cassidy back in the ring for the first time in a while, and Roppongi Vice taking on Will Ospreay and Aussie Open. I've not seen Aussie Open in action since witnessing them in person many years ago when I was in England in 2018 for the Wrestling Media Con. I saw them wrestle a couple of dates, and I was very impressed with them then, and obviously they've gotten a lot better since then if they're working New Japan now and they're part of this whole big storyline. I love the athleticism in this match, by the way. One of my favorite moments just before the break was that big triple cutoff where all three of the guys, the good guys, get smooshed and then they get slammed into the apron at the same time. Orange has some great cruiserweight action here once he gets his big hot tag. It cuts to a great shot of Ospreay looking just flabbergasted on the apron after that happens. Aussie Open with some insane double team moves. I love Mark Davis's insane pile driver onto Trent after just kind of pulling him up from the ground, almost kind of a deadlift situation there. Orange ends up hitting Kyle Fletcher with the orange punch to win the match here. And then after the bell, we see Jeff Cobb and Great O'Khan show up, the other members of the United Empire, to kind of show up and intimidate the good guys. But then suddenly FTR show up to even the odds. Great big pop for the ROH Tag Champions, and that's kind of how we end up there. Kind of killing two birds with one stone with that matchup, not just the build with Orange and Ospreay, but also the winner-take-all tag title match we're going to see at the pay-per-view as well. But I thought as far as the matches goes, it was a very good opening match and really hit all those points to get the crowd to wake up. Sanjay Dutt, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh are backstage, and they're very happy about some of the recent wins and Satnam's in-ring debut and how successful that was. Sanjay Ospreay wants to take the group to India, but Jay Lethal wants the ROH World Television Championship, and he points out that Samoa Joe has not been in action for quite a while, not since Double or Nothing, and so basically gives him two options. Either tape that shoulder up and wrestle me for the championship, or vacate it and give the belt to me, because I am the longest reigning television champion in ROH history. I'm the most deserving and whatnot. He says time is ticking. So I'm wondering, is this going to be a thing where they actually try to enforce a 30-day defense rule in this one, or are they going to bring Samoa Joe back out for this? I don't know, but I wish the storyline would keep going. Maybe they're going to kind of like get the wheels turning. Maybe this is an indication that Samoa Joe is coming back, but I am curious to know where that storyline is going to continue once he is back. Then it's time to hear from Christian Cage. He's going to explain his actions based on what we saw at the end of last week's Dynamite when he betrayed Jungle Boy in shocking fashion after that ladder match. He's in the ring with Shivani, and he explains that he still has a grudge against Jungle Boy for eliminating him from the Casino Battle Royal last year, which is some deep storytelling there. But not only is he mad at Jungle Boy, he's mad at each and every one of you for cheering on that elimination. So he basically admits he's been playing this long game where he lost out on a potential, roster bonus for being eliminated. So he's going to recoup that by riding Jurassic Express's coattails this whole time. He also talks about, the fans on social media, they know nothing. And it's, I don't go to the drive-thru and tell you how to do your job. He puts over, I'm the legend, I deserve respect. He's going full, much like, kind of like cashing in like all this like goodwill and saying, I am the legend that everyone says I am. I should be treated with more respect. And he also says it's bullshit that I was ever coming back here to elevate the talent and work on building toward the future. It's all about him. They show footage of last week after the show went off the air when Christian got in the face of Jungle Boy's mother and sister. And he says, Jungle Boy's mom's got the hots for old Christian Cage. He tells Jungle Boy, I never wanted to be your father. I never wanted to be a father figure. You have a father, but he's dead. And it's a good thing too, because if he were alive, he'd be embarrassed and ashamed of what you'd become. Like, damn, bringing up the late great Luke Perry, twisting the dagger like that, bringing up the dead father. Boy, that was some big old time heel heat for sure. I know a lot of people were uncomfortable about that stuff. My rule on that is, if the family's okay with it, then I'm okay with it. I think it's free reign as long as everyone's consenting to it and they agree it's good for the heat, so to speak. Luchasaurus showing up and he corners Cage and he starts choking him out, but Christian gets him to let go, saying, remember what happened to Marco, which is, we're bringing up Marco Stunt now as well. He also says, you're like a son to me, and so he basically appeals to Luchasaurus, whispers something into his ear, gives him a hug, and Luchasaurus isn't really fighting back. He's kind of like looking conflicted, and what is this going to be? Christian says, I need to talk to you, but it needs to be in private, away from these losers. He says, I love that when he's being choked by Luchasaurus, he still has the presence of mind to heal on the fans and call them losers while it's happening. So we get a sneaky smile by Christian as well once Luchasaurus is backed off. And that's how we end. I mean, this segment was intense. First of all, even without mentioning Luke Perry, I think Christian's promo was very strong. I think, again, it was rooted in something that like you wouldn't think about from that long ago, but the fact they are bringing that up as motivation, I think is pretty brilliant, the way they kind of tied that back up. Again, the line about Jungle Jack's dad, pretty ballsy, but as long as everyone was okay with it, like I think it's fine. Where they're going to go with Luchasaurus and all this, that's another big question as well. Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by this segment and by this promo for sure. We hear from the Young Bucks and Kyle O'Reilly backstage. The Bucks are gloating about their big tag title win last week in the ladder match, how they're going to be at Forbidden Door. Kyle's a bit peeved that Sting came back and took him to Dick Kick City last week on Rampage, and he wants a piece of he and Darby Allin. And the Bucks say that for one night only, they're back in Bullet Club teaming with El Phantasmo and Hikuleo, and we're going to hear from Sting and Darby on who they're bringing to the party a little later in the show. I'm going to go to our final matchup to determine who the fourth man's going to be in the four-way match for the All-Atlantic Championship at the pay-per-view as Malachi Black takes on Penta Oscuro. This is a hard-hitting affair, lots of big strikes here. I mean, these guys really brought it in this matchup. Malachi goes on a big run, hits the moonsault and the double stomp. We get a kick out. Penta with a fear factor from the top rope, that kind of package pile driver, but he can't capitalize in time. Malachi gets a foot on the ropes for the pinfall. He's able to recover and hit his big roundhouse kick, the Black Mass. Is it called the Black Mass now? I'm not sure, but he hits the big kick to win the match. Good stuff between these two. Pac shows up right after the bell to confront Malachi, but then we see Miro on the screen. He's talking to God as he's cutting this promo, saying he will drag all the bastards and the heathens to redeem them all, is what he says. So yeah, I think of all the matches that are happening at the pay-per-view, this is one that I'm looking forward to. Definitely top 2 or 3 in terms of my expectations. We get a promo from Wardlow on Scorpio Sky saying he wants that TNT Championship and he's going to wait until Scorpio's all healed up to fight him so we can take him to Wardlow's world. On we go now to a match revisited from the old ROH days as Hangman Page takes on Silas Young, the last real man in professional wrestling. Of course, Silas is a former 2-time World Television Champion in ROH. Good to see him here making his AEW debut. And Adam Cole is on commentary for this one, by the way. Big clothesline on the outside by Page on the floor, and the bump that Silas takes is impressive looking, followed up by the moonsault before the break. There's some good back and forth in this one. Hangman ends up winning with the buckshot. It's fairly academic. You know, again, it's one of those things where you know what's going to happen, you know what the outcome's going to be, but how they're going to get there. And I think the match with Silas and Hangman definitely held up. I think there's some great action with the two of them there. After the bell, though, Adam Cole gets on the mic and he wants to lead story time, but then Jay White, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, appears, and he basically reiterates, hey, you know, I have to make a decision on who I'm going to defend the title against. Sorry, Adam, still not going to be you, because, you know, you lost to Hangman twice. Then he goes to Hangman in the ring, says it's not going to be you either. And then they has scuffle. We see all 3 of them fighting, and we get a moment here, kind of a dissension tease where Adam's got the championship belt, and it looks like he might be going for Jay, might be going for Hangman in that, but we don't really know. He kind of gets cut off. There's a standoff there. But then we hear the coin, and the crowd goes absolutely banana for this, for Kazuchika Okada, the Rainmaker, the former IWGP Heavyweight Champion, making his AEW debut here on national TV. They just told us last week he wasn't going to even be at Forbidden Door, but swerve, bro. Turns out he's going to be there, and we've got that confrontation there in the ring after Okada and Page clear out Cole and White. And then we find out that it's going to be a 4-way match for the championship. So it's not just going to be a triple threat. It's not going to be just Hangman or Cole versus Jay White. Okada's going to be in the mix as well, and that has the potential to be a great match on top of everything else we're seeing on this show. But what a cool segment there. I mean, the match itself, like I said, it was what it was. You kind of knew what it was going to be going into it. Then that fallout at the end and the surprise of Okada, I think, is what really put things over the top. We hear from Jade Cargill and crew. We find out that Red Velvet is out with an injury, but Jade says the show must go on. They have some words for Chris Statlander about all this, and then Stokely Hathaway says there's an open call out to see who will be the next baddie or baddies in the group, and he says, my sisters in Christ, please keep the pictures PG. And then after the commercial break, we actually hear a rebuttal from Chris Statlander and Athena. They're having some fun with it. They're kind of making fun of the fact that, oh, the baddie audition's happening. Oh, just think of the perks you can get getting to be a baddie and be next to Jade Cargill and everything. And they say they're not worried about that. They're not worried who the new baddie or baddies will be. And they say they're going to have Willow Nightingale on their side of the ring for that inevitable confrontation. So that should be interesting. In our second to last match of the evening, Toni Storm taking on Marina Shafir, who's got Nyla Rose in her corner, which feels like a new development here. And there's no Vicky Guerrero to be found, so I'm wondering what this relationship with Marina and Nyla is going to be. Marina working that slower, methodical process, that style that she does, hits a big kick and knocks herself down in the process, actually. Nyla with a cheap shot on the outside just before the break. Toni makes a big comeback. Shafir goes for a pump handle slam, but Toni's able to counter it into a roll-up to win. But then right after the bell rings, you got Nyla Rose making more impact there, beating her down after the bell. Thunder Rosa shows up to help even the odds. Kind of a cool moment here where Toni takes the women's championship and decks Rose with it, and then she turns around. We get that kind of a tense moment with the belt, like, you know, you're holding my property, that sort of thing. The match itself was okay, I guess. The fallout, you know, we saw here, that was interesting, kind of building more tension here. But man, we're getting a lot of these matches tonight where it's just like after the bell, this next thing happens. Like they have like no time to let anything breathe, I feel, tonight. We hear from from Darby Allin and Sting, their rebuttal to what the Young Bucks and Kyle O'Reilly said earlier in the show. Darby saying they're not going to Forbidden Door alone, and he declares that Shingo Takagi and Hiromu Takahashi are going to be in their corner, and they're advertising dudes with attitudes against Bullet Club here. So kind of a return to Great American Bash 1990 with that team name there. That should be very interesting. We also get some dueling promos from Phoenix and Andrade in regard to their match coming up on Rampage. And poor Excalibur, God bless him, he had to read all those match reads by himself at like 1.5 speed as the graphics were flying by. Someone get that man some oxygen. Main event time. The ace of New Japan, Hiroshi Tanahashi, making his in-ring debut with AEW as he teams with Jon Moxley against Chris Jericho and Lance Archer. Willie Reeves, of course, joining the commentary here. Very flustered from the get-go. I mean, throughout the whole match, he's tripping all over himself. He calls Lance Archer Lance Hoyt at one point, which I don't think he's been called that in over a decade, but there you go. At one point, Sammy Guevara interferes in the match, and JR with a great line for the night saying, "Sammy, you and your tongue, get away." Moxley takes a lot of the heat in this match. Tanahashi gets the hot tag, gets a big roll here. Moxley the dive onto Archer on the outside as this is going on. The high fly flow is countered into the walls of Jericho, which that was pretty cool. We get the paradigm shift to Archer, and then we get another high fly flow on the fallen Archer for Moxley and Tanahashi to win. And once again, right after the bell, you know some shit's going down. We've got this stare down with Moxley and Tanahashi, and meanwhile, this growing number of people on the outside are just brawling as it's going on. There's Archer, there's Jericho, there's Kingston, there's Jericho Appreciation Society, there's Shota Umino, there's Ortiz and Santana, Minoru Suzuki shows up as well. This whole brawl's going, and you just get the feeling that they wanted this show to end about a minute before it ended up doing it, because this awkward moment here where the guys are brawling, although there's not a lot of heat to it, it feels like, and the crowd just kind of sounds tired, honestly. And then you get this whole stare down still going on where Moxley and Tanahashi are just locked into each other here while all this chaos is around them. And if it ended, 45 or 60 seconds earlier than it ended up doing, it would have been so much more impactful. But you get the feeling that they went home early on that match. Oh, we got to fill time. More people get out there, more people brawl, and like just hearing the announcers try and cover for it was kind of awkward. But still a cool moment, still cool to see Tanahashi get in the ring there and scrap. I'm going to talk more about that whole moment in a little bit on the other side of this when I give my grade and everything. But I think just that moment and that spectacle of them teaming up together, I thought was a pretty cool way to end the show. I liked the action, the in-ring stuff on this show, I think was pretty darn good all across the board. I liked a lot of the promos we saw tonight, especially Christian Cage's. I think that there was a lot of strong build toward Forbidden Door, and if you like these kind of shows with that crossover stuff with stars from other companies showing up and everything, then you get a kick out of this episode, provided you at least know something, or at least a passing glance of information about most of these people. Like, I knew most of the people we saw on TV tonight, but not all of them, and not as extensively as I know some other hardcore fans might. And I think that one of the biggest real hiccups they've had with the build for this show is just, I think they could have spent more time really delving into these characters that are going to be there at the pay-per-view and like who they are, why they're here, what their history is and whatnot. I would have loved to have seen Tanahashi have a singles match in AEW instead of this tag thing where you don't get to see him in his on full display here. I think if you're trying to convince the people who aren't the hardcore fans, the people who don't necessarily know everything about New Japan, like why they should watch Forbidden Door, why we should care about these people. So I think we could have had a little more something. The fact that we had Okada, Takagi, and Takahashi all as last minute announcements on the go home show, that was really surprising to me. Again, Okada's reveal, I think, was the biggest thing of the show, the biggest surprise. The fans there definitely got it, a smart crowd there in Milwaukee. I just think that the live crowd might understand. But again, it's just the whole transit to TV thing, try to get more pay-per-view buys. That's just my thing. Again, I am interested because I do have kind of a glancing knowledge of most of these individuals, but I know there's a lot of people out there who don't. And I think if they worked a little harder to kind of bridge that gap and not just say, say, of course you know who these people are. And I think that would probably go a long way in making the show stronger, in my opinion. That being said, here are my Forbidden Door predictions. Let's get them all out of the way right now. I think Ospreay is going to retain the U.S. Championship, as chaotic and fun I think as Orange Cassidy winning would be. I see Miro becoming the first All-Atlantic champion. I think it'd be a great rebound for him because he lost the TNT Championship, was off for a while, and now comes back in a big way. I'd love to see him keep that dominance going with this new championship, and I think he could legitimize that in a big way. I think FTR is going to win that triple threat match and win all the golds. You'll see them with the ROH belts and the IWGP tag team belts, just to keep emphasizing just how good and legendary this team is here. I think Jay White or Okada are going to be the champion. If I had to pick one, I'll say Jay White retains, but it's definitely going to be Hangman or Adam Cole taking the pinfall in that one. As far as the interim AEW championship match goes, I believe Moxley's going to win that one. As cool as it would be to see Tanahashi win the belt there, I just think, again, it's taking a big risk putting the belt on somebody who, is a legend, is huge in Japan, but again, might not translate well with, less hardcore fans. Maybe we will get Tanahashi because they were certainly indicating they wanted him versus Punk at Forbidden Door, so maybe this is going to be our roundabout way of getting that match, is having Tanahashi win. Moxley doesn't need to win the championship, the interim championship again. And so I'm not sure. I'm still kind of thinking about that one. But if I had to pick one, I would say Moxley wins, but I understand why Tanahashi would win. But what did you think of Dynamite this week, folks? What are your picks for Forbidden Door this Sunday? Let me know in the comment section below, and stay tuned to the channel sometime on Monday when I'll have my review of Forbidden Door. And if you haven't seen it yet, I am officially on TikTok now. That's right. I finally bit the bullet. I've joined the trend. I've been putting things out at least once every day since I've opened the account. So check that out. I have the link to it right here and in the description. So do check that out if you haven't seen me there yet. And until then, folks, until Forbidden Door, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.